Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidt List. I am your host, Kurt Schmidt. I am super excited for today's show because I've got my good friend Colleen joining us. We're going to be talking about all things burnout and how to manage it because we all have to deal with it, don't we? We really do. Speaking of dealing with, you have to deal with my little plug that I'm making for my new book, The Little Book of Networking. It is out and available on Amazon now. I also have a new book launching shortly. So make sure if you're not subscribed and cooked and liked and all the things and smashing buttons and stuff, that you're doing it because you'll see some new content coming on the new book very soon. So let me jump in and introduce my friend Colleen. Colleen, how are you today? Ah,
This book? I love
that's
this
the book.
book. Go.
That's the. I'll give you your $20 later, Colleen. Okay.
Thanks.
How are you today?
I am so well. How are you today, Kurt?
I am doing fantastic, especially now that you're here. So, Colleen, tell me a little bit about the work you do and who you do it for.
You bet. I am a fractional CMO and marketing advisor through my business, Catapult North. So I help technology B2Bs primarily grow their brand and their business and grow their reach in the market. And additionally, for those looking to get better, expand their mind and their brain and their work and feel a sense of purpose, I write a weekly newsletter called Grow North Thursday, where I talk about all things business growth, personal purpose, and lifestyle design for funsies.
Fantastic. Fantastic. How did, tell me, Colleen, how did you get into the marketing space? Was it something, as a young woman, you were like, oh, I can't wait to get in and mix it up in marketing? Was it part of the plan all the time, or did you trip and fall into this space like a lot of us do?
As much as I would like to say I came into this world knowing exactly what I wanted to do, and it was marketing, I really fell into it, thank goodness, in college. I was in French class, and a lot of people were talking about marketing, and I thought, well, maybe I'll take a marketing class. And I had taken a lot of therapy early in life, and I've always been really curious about how humans work, kind of that interoception. So learning kind of more about how much of marketing revolves around understanding people's pain and helping to solve it really caught my attention. So I'm so glad that I fell into the field because it really aligns with my passion.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree. I love that side of marketing. I'm trying to figure out what is the problem we're trying to solve for people, and then also being able to test it and say, did it solve it, and see actual like measurements and results around those things. It can be really exciting.
Data can make it very exciting. So we can concretely say, wow, this message is working.
Right. Exactly. That's great. Well, speaking of psychological needs, I want to talk to you specifically about something that a lot of us have been experiencing. People were experiencing it during the pandemic. After the pandemic, we had lots of different sorts of eras in our things. We had the quiet quitting, and we had people, we had mass layoffs, and
Mhm.
now we do have a lot of people that are a little nervous about layoffs happening and the economy and all these different things. And so what it can obviously that stuff can tend to lead to a lot of burnout. And I want to ask you specifically, Colleen, today, what's been your experience with burnout, and what are some of the ways that you've been able to manage it yourself?
Yes, yes. So I am coming into this conversation as a person who has very much experienced burnout in my life. I think that entrepreneurs, high achievers, growth builders are particularly conditioned to be susceptible to burnout. We're constantly looking at the exterior world. We're constantly taking in those data points. So, my story really revolves around experiencing burnout at a young age. And, when I was 8 years old, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. So I became a primary helper of hers from a very young age. I experienced postpartum depression after my first child. And I also experienced this burnout and complexity in entrepreneurship when I started my business in fall of
Mhm.
21. And I think that that's something that I wasn't really prepared for. And we're hearing it a lot, leaving the 9 to 5, fractional work, be an entrepreneur, passive income. But we really never talk about this, the anxiety and the pressure and emotional debt that comes with years and years of pushing yourself really hard. So
Yeah.
I think that,
And what you have
yeah,
to
that,
be independent consultant or entrepreneur, startup person, whatever the case may
mhm,
be.
yeah, yeah. And I think that, tech folks, high achievers, we tend to get stuck in our brain. We move through these kind of cycles of over analyzing. We kind of get stuck up here. And I think that we tend to lose kind of this connection between body and brain. So
Hmm.
often we feel that anxiety, we may not realize that we hold anxiety. We're tensing up, we might feel it in our stomach. And so I think part of what I've learned is that childhood trauma, life trauma impacts our ability to kind of get out of our head and really feel in our body where we feel stressed. At the same time, I also think that stress can be someone's superpower if harnessed effectively. Kelly McGonigal wrote a great book, The Upside of Stress. And I think that when managed and used, we can do great things. We can take action. We can pull groups together. We can do awesome things.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the problem that, and I've experienced this, is that you can feel very alone in that burnout time, right? Because
mhm.
you have to be the only one that is experiencing this. I mean, you're the you're the you're the problem. It's all the voices in your head are telling you this is unique to you, and it's because you're a very special person, right?
And I would say, like, this whole conversation around mental health, burnout, and especially in a post-COVID world, like, we need to be talking about this. We need to be elevating the conversation so that, when people are talking with their neighbors, that they know that they're not crazy and they're not abnormal. But we live in a world where we have to continually manage these like over stimulants, and it's completely normal. And we all need tools. We should be taught. We should be handed like a book in entrepreneurship that says, "Okay, it's going to be hard. You're going to work hard, and here's some tools to help you." Maybe we could get that in school.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's funny because I talk about this in my new book that's coming out soon. Is that when I turned 40, I made a promise to myself that I would create more than I will consume, and
Mm,
that was sort of for the rest of my days here on the planet. That was going to be my goal, is to create more than I consume, and that's where things like the podcast came from, the book, all of these different things, and then what I did with social media, for example, is I kind of flipped it and said I will post more than I will actually consume social media, and I
mm,
still to this day, that's how I sort of run things and manage things, and that for me personally, I'm not saying this would work for everybody, but for me personally, that focus on creating more in the world than
mm,
consuming,
mm,
you would think that just being more like put my feet up and just consume things would actually be less stressful. But for me, as you mentioned, a wannabe high achiever, and um, a person who is a knowledge based worker, right? Someone who works in the knowledge space, right, in your brain. That's where most of your work comes from. That sort of thing really, really helped me. What sort of things were really helpful for you in
mm.
your mindset when it came to this?
Yes, I have to piggyback on that. I started writing a writing practice really in January of 23. And I can't believe how therapeutic that was. Like
Yeah.
and I don't know that I would have been so diligent about journaling or writing had I not said, "Okay, I am going to try to create as much as I consume," because I read a lot of blogs, I read a lot of books on LinkedIn, and having that reason to like write weekly and giving myself the time and the space to explore the topics that I want to write about is incredibly therapeutic. to the fact that I think that I would keep writing even if I never hit publish because
Hmm.
it allows me to go into these areas. This past summer, I one of the tools I love to cover a couple tools that are in my toolkit.
Please, yes.
So I actually embarked on a journaling exercise this summer with a friend, and it's based on the book The Artist's Way.
Oh, yes,
And
I'm very familiar. It's a
uh,
great book.
yes, and so morning pages is the exercise, and so every
Yes,
morning I'm
I do follow
journaling.
the morning pages thing as well. It's great.
It's truly life changing. Again, it's like stream of consciousness writing, where you don't stop, you don't overanalyze. Sometimes you just keep writing for three. I am writing this page right now. I don't know what I'm talking about, but writing for 3 pages and just seeing what comes out. And I went into some deep, deep, dark places. I kind of remembered things that I didn't remember before.
Mm.
So I think that like stream of conscious journaling writing is an amazing practice. And if you can find a friend to do it with over a month, it's a nice accountability tool. So you can be like, okay, this morning this came up and hey, how was your morning pages? So writing has become a great tool for me to kind of get rid of the clutter in my mind and then start the day with this kind of like, okay, I got rid of all that junk. Now I'm gonna embark on my day. um, and I think a couple other tools and experts that I love. Have you seen the movie Stuck on Netflix? The Jonah
I don't
Hill
think so.
documentary? Oh, I really loved it. So I'd never heard of Phil Stutz, and he's a psychologist, and he's Jonah Hill's psychologist. And so he made a movie all about Stutz's life and his tools. And so this is a therapist who never really liked the idea of going into a session and just having someone talk through their problem. He wanted to give like real tools that someone could use that day that would help them in really tough moments. And one of the kind of the pyramids that he talks about is working on this pyramid, the bottom being your life force, your physical body, the next being your relationship with others, and the top being your relationship with yourself. And so when I'm in like a moment of burnout or panic attack, I always kind of go into my body and focus on my body. Did I eat junk today that makes me feel like shit? Did I move my body to make sure that I'm like pushing out this kind of like crazy energy? So like getting into my body and making sure that I'm doing my body justice really helps. My relationship with others. Like when that's suffering, when I'm not, with my family, my friends, when I'm not supporting those relationships, I really do carry that around. And then lastly, once you kind of build this foundation, the relationship with yourself and being able to better listen to your body and kind of that creating that separation from feelings to kind of wondering why you're feeling a certain way. Like, okay, this is triggering. Why am I feeling triggered? You know?
Yeah.
So that life force concept and Phil Stutz has a great book called The Tools that that have really helped me.
I love that. There's, I would say because I'm working on launching my own business, and there's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes when
Oh, yeah.
you're doing that, and you reminded me of I just watched this Netflix documentary since we're sharing Netflix
Yes.
recommendations. There's one called Squaring the Circle, and it's
Ooh.
all about these couple of guys that started a album cover agency out of just randomly, and then ended up doing, some of the biggest acts in the world. They did like Led Zeppelin's covers, they did Pink Floyd's covers, like the famous one with the prism triangle on it.
Mm.
That's like iconic now, and lots and lots of other things. And it's really interesting story because they had no plan. They were just sort of feeling their way along, and then um, and and they had specifically made an agency that was it was their ideas, not the band's ideas that would be on the album covers, which is typically the exact opposite of how band covers work. Is where the band is like, I want. So I also relate that to coming in and coaching businesses and working with businesses and saying, I want to work with businesses that want my ideas and want my things and not, hey, we already kind of have this system in place and these things, and we want you to
Mhm.
just implement those things, right? And
Mhm.
I want to be able to come in and say, well, actually, all the things you've been doing, you're still in the same spot. So you probably need new ideas. And watching that documentary just gave me the idea of, just kept me thinking, yeah, that's the right move to go is to focus on what you're good at, what your experience is. Like you were saying, what is your body telling you? What is your mind telling you is the right thing to do? And
Mhm.
sticking with it through those imposter syndrome times or those times where you're feeling extra stressed out because um the while tools and all these different things are great, the answer's inside of you, and
Mhm.
you can push through if but it's not easy, right?
You know what? I love that, and I think that once I started noticing things about myself, things that brought me joy, things that I was passionate about, things
Right.
that aligned with my core values, it taking those noticings, like Mary Kondo, the organizational expert, she says
Oh, she's
when
the
you're
best.
when you're cleaning your house, you hold
Yeah,
something.
I want her to do minds. Like, if she can do
Oh,
brains, that would
okay. She
be
hold
game
that
over.
up in a neat little spot in your brain, and you could always access it.
Yep,
Oh
just
man.
roll it up and stick it in there.
Oh, and it's when you start to notice, I think the things that bring you joy. And when you are deep in burnout, it's tough to like, why would I think about something that brings me joy? I'm trying to be productive and I'm trying to create value and but truly, truly I think that when you start learning who you really are, creating kind of this whole perception of yourself, being at peace with who you were back then, who you are today, who you will be tomorrow, it really helps you define what do you believe? Like what am I here for? What do I value in life? What are my guiding principles that I adhere to every day? So when I can start noticing kind of what I align with, it helps me put together my framework that I believe in, that I can bring to the world, kind of going along the lines of what is the unique value that I can bring to a company, to a person, and staying true to
Yep.
who you are.
Yeah, and I think there's too a maturity that comes with it because I think when I turned 40, I was more focused on legacy than I had ever been before than just on sort of consuming, right? Like I was more focused on how I was going to leave the place than the dent I was going to make in it, I guess. And it really shaped how I was going to approach things going forward. And one of the things was is obviously I took stock just like you were mentioning, right, of a lot of things in my life. Was this something that brought me joy or did it not bring me joy? And it wasn't kind of like, do I think it'll bring me joy in the future? Um or maybe it brought me joy in the past and just having it is comforting, right? No, it was kind of just this black and white sort of approach to things. Um, and that man, that really helped me do that because what you're talking about in terms of, there's so many different ways of doing the morning pages and like there's gratitude, right? Where people write down, they wake up in the morning, what are three things I'm grateful for, and all sorts of different ways to get your day started. And, but I think the overall core thing that really helped me was just starting to be intentional about these
Mhm.
things. It didn't matter what the actual practice was or the tool or the framework or whatever the case may be, right? Because I remember as a professional in large organizations, right? I took Myers Briggs, I took Strengths Finder, I took all the different things, and what I found out was the value I got of those things was the intentional work that was being done. It wasn't that Myers Briggs was any more special than StrengthsFinder. It was the act of doing these things that made the impact more so than any framework that was the right way or wasn't the right way.
Mhm.
Did you experience that as well? Because I know a lot of people start off with these frameworks and then you kind of make them your own in a way.
Mhm. Yeah. For me, when we're talking about burnout, I think that for a long time, especially after my second child, where we're living in the mom mode and the career mode, I was living very much in a state of reactive mode. I was reacting to what people needed from me. I was reacting to the way that I was feeling. And one that's a great sense of panic because the more you let in, the more you commit to, the less you have time for
Yeah.
yourself. But when you say really living intentionally, it's creating that space between, something happens and I react
Right.
versus I'm intentionally um, owning the way that I react to any given situation, which is super hard. Like they're teaching this stuff to like kindergartners right now. Like, okay, you know, I feel this way. There's a whole framework. I choose to react in this way. Like this, it's great that kindergartners are learning this now. I wish that I would have. But the intentionality of okay, so, these are my goals for 2024, and this is how I'm going to get there. And by the way, to your point, once I have that intentionality in my vision, then I create all those systems for like how that stuff works. Whether
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like I'm going to create my time blocks. I'm going to create my system in my day. And like Kurt, you are brilliant when it comes to systems and all of this stuff. But once we get into that framework of like intention and what we truly want, because a lot of us don't know what we really want until we
Yeah.
take time to figure that out. But when we can set that vision, then we can create all those systems around how we do what we do. And I read a quote recently. It was from the creator of Dilbert. He said, "What is it? Goals are for losers. Systems are for winners."
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I mean, I still like goals. I do like goal
Oh,
setting, but
sure.
like when it comes to feeling burned out, I think systems for your time and calendar are rock solid.
Yeah.
Uh, Last year, I started using 3 meetings in my day: a morning ramp up, a daily ramp down, and a weekly check in. And I'd have kind of my checklist of things that I wanted to do during that time, check my email at certain times. But what are the things I have to do every day to put myself in like less of reactive and more in proactive mode? And that's been a great help for me. Clear commitments, I think, is an area that provides such turmoil in our workplaces and in our personal lives. You know, um, Asking for a commitment, making a commitment, managing commitments can create a lot of emotional turmoil without clarity. And then I also think systems around whether it's mental health, physical health, managing energy. It's great when we do them once, but with marketing, with health, how can we create that action over time based on what we want
Yeah.
is a beautiful thing. It's something that I'm working on every single day. But the intention, to your point, is really important.
It's huge. Well, back to your point, I see so many people as they're growing, they're buying all these books that or reading things or YouTube videos or class courses or things because they think that there's an answer in there somewhere. Somewhere I'm going to find this thing. I'm going to pull out and be like, oh, there it is. There's the golden ticket. I've solved all my problems. And the thing is just to your point is that if until you understand what you're actually trying to do, it doesn't matter what frameworks or things you apply and tools you apply to it because you're just going around in a circle unless you know exactly where the actual destination might be. And to your point, you might not actually ever reach that destination, but that's not the point. The point is we're moving forward. We're not
Mhm.
just sitting still or worse, regressing.
Yes, yes. And that's a tough place to be. And especially I've noticed this sometimes when I'm have anxiety around whether it's a project or a creation or something where I'm kind of like letting my wheels spin and I'm not taking action. Even taking some sort of action, even though it's not the right action, or it just kind of helps me learn something, that
Yeah,
it's almost like this anxiety buster, like taking action and creating something allows me to get to that next level that I need to be at to maybe that's the creation is like that third or fourth or fifth creation. But action, I think, is something that is a wonderful tool to start moving forward. Yeah, action.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, that's how we learn because we're going to take action. We'll make mistakes, and that's how we learn. But we have to, again, back to the intentionality of it, is that we have to also agree that as we take this action, we will accept what comes. Right, we will accept that mistakes might happen, and that's fine. Right, we'll stub our toe and we'll just keep moving. It's fine.
Mhm.
And it won't be, we won't look at it, that stubbing of the toe is like uh, a reflection on our entire life choices, and completely crumble, at that moment. But again, yeah, I think to your point, I mean, the mental health part is about just taking care of the your physical health. I really think is important. But I also want to talk a little bit about what you was talking about is just energy and that
Mhm.
sort of thing, right? And when I think of energy, I'm not very woo woo. Like I'm not charging crystals and moon water and things. Not yet, not yet. I mean, we'll see.
Never say
But
never, Kurt.
never say never. But uh, one thing I do like to do is make sure that the environment that I'm working in things
Mhm. Mhm.
um, are are optimal and as optimal as possible. And I put a lot of thought into it, right? What kind of lighting do I have? What kind of knickknacks are on the desk? What sort of things? And I change it regularly. I try
Mhm.
to make regular changes to my environment where I spend more and more time in regularly. And I don't mean like every week, it could be a couple times a year or something. But for me, in order to create a better energy, sometimes um, just the act of change and the act of moving things has been really, really helpful. There's a study that was done in the 60s where they went into this office and they brought in a ton of plants. They put plants everywhere around the office, tons and tons of plants. And they watched, and productivity went up by crazy amounts in the next like 6 months or so. And then they waited for a while, and productivity sort of lacklustered and just kind of plateaued, and then kind of went back down. And then they went in and they took out all the plants, and then productivity shot up again, and it was great. And what the study basically is talking about is that just that change, that energy change that you bring into spaces can make a huge difference on how you feel engaged or how productive you feel. So I've always looked at that study and felt like, I'm like this about my home office. I'm like this about the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, my garage, my workbench, where I have like all my tools and things, um, and being able to arrange those things and change where those things are at as I grow and change as a person has been really helpful because you just constantly coming back to the same space over and over again, even though I might be a different person now, um, has been really powerful for me.
Wow, I love that, Kurt. No wonder you are into Marie Kondo. Like that is total feng shui stuff. And I love like the can you give me an example of like something you would change in your office to like switch it up?
It's made a huge difference. Like, for me, it's anything from the chair I sit into, um,
Mm.
to how I position my monitors because I have multiple monitors. I've tried mechanical keyboards and regular old keyboards. I've tried different mice, things like that. Like
Mm.
again, like not just dealing with the space because I feel like it's been assigned to, I guess,
Mhm. So like
you
owning
know.
your space and making it work for you and
Yeah,
yeah, I love that.
yeah, and that's been really, really powerful. Like I said, and it hasn't been cheap because changing, especially changing things like that is not a cheap way to go about doing things. But again, like I've brought in lots of different things that have helped, and some I brought in, and I'm like, why? A month later, I'm like, why is that thing sitting there? I
I
have no
tried
idea
it,
why I did that.
been there, done that, can move on. Yes.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. So for me, like I said, some ways that I avoid burnout is just anticipating burnout, I guess,
Mm.
is something that just accepting that this is going to happen. It's coming my way. It's
Yes.
not here now. But maybe I could prepare for it a little bit. Maybe I can create a soft landing
Yes.
for it, you
You
know?
know, Johnny Miller, who talks about, he has a course called Nervous System Mastery. He
Okay.
talks about kind of preventing and looking at burnout with he calls it a feather brick dump truck scenario where, our bodies can take a certain amount of stress and be forgiving. And
Yeah.
sometimes we take that emotional depth concept. And so a feather might be like, I woke up in the morning feeling kind of tired and I got this cold, or so and so did that. Why do I keep thinking about that? It's kind of a feather, whereas a brick is kind of like you know, uh, I went down. I got,
Yeah. It's
someone said
abrasive.
something to this and I just snapped. It's kind of like a brick. And then when you don't kind of realize that and stop the cycle, then you can get hit with the dump truck, which is the like really major diagnosis or a panic attack or something. So I think that it's such a great point you just made, Kurt. Like having the kind of triggers, like knowing what your triggers are. Oh, well, when I feel stressed, and even though I might
Yeah.
not know it, um, in 2020, I actually realized I was getting lightheaded sometimes when I was working because my breaths were so short and I wasn't
Mm,
taking deep breaths. And I realize now the reason I was getting lightheaded was because I was holding my breath and not even
yeah.
realizing. And
I was
it's
so
like,
lucky. I was so lucky years ago. I had a boss that I remember something was happening, and I don't remember why, but he was writing down something in notes, which we all wrote notes and things. But I remember just asking him, like, because it was a different, it wasn't, it didn't, it was a different notebook, or, and I remember like, oh, what are you writing down there? He's like, oh, I'm writing down my triggers, and he just said it so matter of factly, and I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I kind of cataloged throughout the day, and I've been doing it for a little while, like what things trigger me, and I'm writing them down, and I was like, oh. He's like, "Yeah, because if I leave them just hanging out in the air and not tied to something,
Mm,
it's hard for me to act on them and anticipate them." And I was like, "Wow, that's a really good." So
naming
I
them.
started
Yeah, I
I
like
started
that.
doing
Yeah.
that years and years ago, like writing down like this thing triggered me or this thing's and then compiling them and again being able to look at them, not in the moment like you were talking about, right? Like, not just having to deal with them in the moment, but being able to put them up and being able to study them a little bit, and see how maybe there was uh, some affinity to different things, and how could I find different things in there? And again, it's not something I'm religious about, but it's definitely something that I pay attention to, and just again, my I remember the boss he just said it so offhandedly, but I knew exactly what he was doing, why he was doing it, what the impact was, and how he was doing it. I didn't have to take like a course or read a book or anything, but I just knew right then and there, like, oh, this might work for me. So I think it's again
Mm.
that curiosity, like, and you talked about it, is that going out there and exploring different spaces on how people are probably solving these problems differently. Because no one person is just one thing solves all the things, right? I
And
mean,
you know what?
that's how we get cults,
Oh,
Colleen.
sorry.
That's how we get cults.
Okay, my Siri just started talking, so apparently you hit a cult nerve maybe that is coming through my Siri.
So again, I'm going to write that down for you.
I love what you just talked. You're using kind of that curiosity and detective work to figure out what is the underlying theme of your triggers to figure out what your values are in life. I
Yep.
absolutely love that. And I think too, everyone has different toolkits. I think that what I found is experience what works for you because we are all different. For me, I've been getting into some breath work, like the Huberman psychological sigh, the breathe in, top it off, and that out. Like that is gold.
Yeah.
But for someone else I talk to, it really doesn't do a whole lot.
Hmm.
I really love humming as a way to calm. I picked that up from uh, Johnny Miller, who I referenced. That doesn't work for everybody. So even just kind of experiencing and trying new things might bring you to the right toolkit that works for you because you are you.
Right. Yeah. Just don't write it off just because you're like, oh, that's not me. Well, maybe it's not, but I mean, it doesn't mean you can't,
Hmm.
dip your toes in and see what it's like
Yeah.
and give it a go. Right. Like I did that with the meditation apps when they started to become really popular, and I realized that that's not really for me, but I tried it
Hmm. Hmm.
and it was fun. And I learned some things about stuff that wasn't necessarily tied specifically to that piece, but I learned about the importance of just being able to sit quietly
Hmm.
because I'm much more extroverted of a person just in general, and being able to just sit quietly, be a better listener, and those sorts
Hmm.
of things. And again, so much I pick up from things that are unrelated to maybe exactly what I'm trying to do, but I'm out there curious, right? Trying to, never settling, right?
Gathering knowledge. And so this is where I'm going to drop a little a little bomb, a little sauna bomb.
Ooh, love
So
it.
yes, we talked about like tools, experimenting. The whole like contrast therapy was something that back when there were polar plunges and we're all like, oh no, polar plunge?
Right.
No, I don't like being cold. Why would I do that? And I think trying things at certain points in your life lead to different outcomes because I I was at a friend's house in 2019. We did a cold plunge in his garage, and I thought it was the most invigorating thing, which led me to kind of a path to explore contrast therapy in a moment in time. Like 10 years ago, I would have hated it. And now sauna and contrast therapy has become a huge part of my toolkit of my life. Um, my husband and I built a mobile sauna because we were so interested and passionate about what sauna can do. And now I'm in the sauna every other day because it's a way for me to meditate, something that's really hard for me because I can't bring my phone in the sauna, and I can hear my heart beating, and I can like kill my stress. Like that is something I never would have cared about 10 years ago, but here it was presented me to me at the right moment, at the right time in my life, and it felt right.
It's fantastic. And again, like you said, it's not only something that helped you, but it turned into a passion for you to bring it to other people,
Mhm. Right.
which is
Right.
even like that's to me, that's like the pinnacle of like of being helpful to yourself is not only are you helping yourself, but you realized I can operationalize this a little bit and try to bring that joy to other people. So
Mhm.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's been a little passion project, and very fulfilling to be able to bring something that you've learned to other people.
That's so great.
And the whole community aspect is something that you know, there's this community component to sauna, but also community in general when we are facing burnout, high anxiety. I think that you talk about this a lot, but having my community, my boardroom of people that care about me, um, is such a like a something that I rely on in my life, someone that I can
Mhm.
talk about what I'm writing about. Someone that I can, you know, verbalize these struggles that I'm going through, the tools that I'm trying. It's something, 10 years ago I probably wouldn't have put as much value on. I was kind of in, crazy mode, but that's a huge part of my life is having my community and my personal boardroom.
It's so cool. Well, Colleen, I could talk to you all day, but we do have to cut it shorter now, but we'll have to come back and do a follow-up on how this year has been going.
I
We'll do a
love
part
it.
2,
Sounds
okay?
great.
All right, Colleen, so tell the audience, if I wanna get in touch with you, if I wanna learn more about the work you do, both in marketing and the sauna, I'd love to hear.
Yes. All right. So you can find me on LinkedIn, search Colleen Kranz. Follow me on LinkedIn. I write there about 3 or 4 times a week. I would also love it if you are interested to sign up for my newsletter called Grow North Thursday. You can go to my website, ColleenKranz.com, and sign up. Again, I write about business growth and purpose and lifestyle design. And then lastly, if you would like to experience some of those life changing benefits of sauna, the stress killer, and really a way to get in tune with your body, check us out at saunable.com. We do sauna rentals, event hosting, and event experience partnerships.
That's so cool. I love it. All right. Well, Colleen, we'll talk again soon, but thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kurt. I'm so grateful.
All right, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your week to join me. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate Colleen. And she's just so fantastic to talk to. So I highly recommend that you go and check out all the links that I'm going to have in the description. That'll send you over to check out what Colleen's been up to. And you know what? Take care of yourself this week. Get outside. I saw this crazy yellow glowing thing in the sky, and there was some like it was like warm. I don't know. It was weird. You should go out and check it out for yourself. We'll see you next time.